So he sits over there. Actually, today it's also a church built upon it. There's a church of Saint Fotini. If you're wondering who Fotini or Saint Fotini was, actually the eastern parts of Christianity, like Greek Orthodox or Russian Orthodox Christians, they recognize that Samaritan woman as a saint, and they gave her a name Fotini. And the legend says that she was even brought all the way to Rome. She was persecuted for her faith, and she died under the Emperor Nero. And interestingly enough, the legend says that she died because they threw her down into an empty well. That's how she died, supposedly, if that's true. But let's go back to our story. So Jesus is there, sitting by the well, and so she shows up. Very unusual situation. You might be thinking, what's wrong with that? Well, everything is wrong with that. Because normally, well, first of all, carrying water was reserved for women. Men wouldn't do that. That was a task only that women would do. And normally food or drink would be served by women. So that's okay, but the timing of her appearance by the well is really awkward, because normally women would go there twice a day. They would go there right after sunrise, when it wasn't so hot, to get the water for all the functions of the day. And of course, the most important function while taking water from the well was to get the news, the scoop, right? What's going on in town, Who was doing what, and what happened. So that's why women didn't really mind much about going there, because they would go all the information. That was the news flash of the day, right? So they would be there in the morning, and then they would be there towards the evening again, almost around sunset, again to get the water and to get the scoop of the day, what happened and what was about to happen the following day. But she doesn't show up over there in those regular times. Why? Well, you kind of know why. Because it transpires in the gospel, she's been already married 5 times. And that, of course, causes her to be probably the joke of town. So she avoids people. She doesn't want to be spoken about. By the way, one of my friends, she's been actually married 4 times. And I told her, you got to stick to the guy now. You can't divorce him. You got to stay with him for the rest of your life. And she says, why? I said, well, if I ever hit the lottery, I'm going to buy you an Audi, and Audi has 4 rings, not 5. So you got to stick to the 4th one. This is just a side note, obviously. But my brothers and sisters, so she's married the 5th time. And actually, she even isn't married anymore, but now she is with another guy who is not her husband. So let's recap. So she goes to get the water. She doesn't think of that twice. She tries to avoid people. She thinks, I'm going to go get to the well, get the water, get back home. Nobody's going to see me. Fine. Everything is cool. But she arrives at the well, and everything takes a completely different turn. Because not only Jesus is there, and not only that he speaks to her as a Jew, to a woman, to a Samaritan woman, but the conversation goes into a very profound subjects, such as her life, and even the levels of her life that she doesn't really want to talk about. If you are wondering why well, and why the discussion of such nature happens over there, don't be really surprised. Because if you look back in the Bible, almost every time there's any mention of water, something really important happens. Let's just look at a couple of things. The story of creation. Water was the only one element that hasn't been created. If you read the book of Genesis very carefully, it never says that God created water. It only says that God separated water from the dry land. But it never says that God created water. Then let's move. Well, how was Moses found? Well, he was basically left in a little basket, and his mother actually left him on the floating actually on the top of the Nilus River. So he was scooped up from the water. Of course, we cannot forget about the Red Sea, right? The Israelites crossing, leaving the Egypt through the Red Sea. Again, a lot of water. A number of different things happened by the water. Well, Tobit was looking for his wife, and he found her by the well. Well, Jesus was baptized in the Jordan River, and it changed. And, of course, we can even look at our own lives and think of that, okay, something really important happened when there was a water poured on my head. So the symbolic of water, if you go back to the beginning, kind of clarifies that, well, of course she doesn't know about it, that if there is water around, something really important is going to happen. So here she is, not really knowing that would be the case, and they start talking kind of innocently about things, okay, all right, you want water, it's kind of strange, but fine, it's cool. But then he tells her, well, bring your husband, and the whole situation comes to the surface. And she says, well, I understand that you are the prophet. Well, that's more to it. So she now feels that he knows her profoundly. He knows everything that she's done in her life. And this is one of the most stunning things. Despite all of that, he doesn't judge her. He doesn't tell her how bad she is. He doesn't tell her what she shouldn't be doing for the rest of her life. He just simply loves her the way she is, despite all the imperfections of her life and despite all the drama of her life. Look at this from this position. Let's try to get into her shoes for a second. Because we're never going to know that, but we can probably decipher a couple of things. So she's been married 5 times. Now, getting a divorce back in the day was really something simple and quick to happen. Divorce was only granted by the man, so a woman wouldn't be able to divorce her husband unless he raped her. But normally, any reason would be good enough for him to divorce her. So let's say he comes back from work and he gets into his chicken noodle and says, hey, hon, that is not good. It's too much salt in it, so I think I have to divorce you. I mean, anything would be a reason. Anything would be a legitimate reason. And think of that from her perspective, right? Because maybe let's presume maybe 2 of her husband died. But that's even going way too far, right? So the rest of those marriages probably were dissolved by a divorce. And you wonder, okay, so I get married once. And I think that I'm going to be staying with him for the rest of my life. But then he divorces me. So I try it again. And it doesn't work. And I try it again. And it doesn't work. And I try it again. And it doesn't work. I'm still number 4. There's one more left. How much hope can you have in your life? After the 4th time, I don't know what was going on through her mind when she was married the 5th guy. She's like, I don't know, maybe it's just for the kids or for whatever reason. But she probably even she didn't even trust herself anymore. Because she probably was thinking about herself, what a failure am I? 4 guys, and now the 5th, God knows how long that's going to go, and we know what happened with the 5th one. So probably after all of this, she even decided, well, I better be with a guy without her being married because it makes no sense. I tried it 5 times. I gave it enough. So she quits. And she probably thinks of herself as a profound loser. And now Jesus shows up. And he talks to her and he treats her not as a profound loser, but as, and the Orthodox Christians would say that, as additional apostle. Because the Orthodox Christians, they recognize Fotini, that Samaritan woman, as an apostle in a sense. So from that loser, from the one that probably was completely negative and her self-esteem was at the bottom, was probably lower than the Jacob's well, she became an apostle. So she goes into the town. She leaves her jar at that place. Not only it's something that's of value, but she doesn't care. Water is no more important. She walks into where people are, where they're going to be probably looking at her. What's wrong with her now? Let's see what's going to happen. That's going to be really interesting. What she's going to say. And she comes and she says that she finally found a Messiah. And not only that they listened to what she was saying, they verify the information. All the more, they ask Jesus to stay 2 more days over there in the Samaritan territory that he could have denied. And he decided to stay. They stayed there. They were welcomed. And at the end, they say, well, we found, that's him. Yes. And we no longer believe because of your word, because now we know for sure. So my brothers and sisters, it is a profound lesson for ourselves. No matter what our issue might be, no matter what our past might be, if you're thinking about what does it mean to have a mercy of God, what does it mean to believe in God that is mercy,